On today's episode of the Toledo Rockets podcast, we're going to take a way too early look at next year's football schedule and attempt to predict the outcome of each game. I'm Brian Nowicki, the host of the Wick Boyz new Toledo Rockets podcast. We're still a week or so away from the Boca Raton Bowl between the Toledo Rockets and the Liberty Flames, but on today's show, I want to talk about the Rockets' 2023 football schedule. Toledo will be entering the 2023 campaign as the defending MAC champions after defeating Ohio University 17-7 at Ford Field a little over a week ago. The Rockets are expected to return 10 starters on offense and 7 starters on defense, with all starting specialists on special teams as well. In fact, there are only 3 seniors on the offensive line 2-deep depth chart and just 5 seniors on the defensive 2-deep depth chart. I said offensive line, I meant on the offensive 2-deep depth chart. I don't know why I said offensive line. Offensive line is always in my head because I've been so frustrated this year, I guess. But it's 3 seniors on the entire offensive 2-deep depth chart and 5 seniors on the defensive 2-deep depth chart. So there's going to be a lot coming back for next year's team. And this is the defending MAC champions. I mean, given that, expectations will be high in 2023. But a stiff test awaits on September 2nd as the Rockets travel to Illinois to play the alumni of the Big Ten Conference. The non-conference slate rounds out with home games against Texas Southern and San Jose State and a road contest at UMass. So looking at Illinois first, Illinois is 8-4 this season. They had a very tough loss to Michigan, 19-17, hard-fought game. It looked like they were going to win that game. Michigan converted on a 4th down late in the game and kicked a field goal to win. They will play Mississippi State in the ReliaQuest Bowl on January 2nd. This is going to be a tough game for Toledo next year. This is. Illinois has a good rush offense and a very solid defense. I feel like it's a winnable game if Toledo brings their A game. But I'm going to predict a loss in this one because I think Illinois is just going to be too tough. I'm not sure we will come with our A game, first game of the season, It's just, I'm going to go with a loss in the opening game. But I will say this, the 3 remaining non-conference games are all very winnable. Week 2, we have an FCS opponent, Texas Southern, coming to the Glass Bowl. They'll be the home opener. And, Texas Southern went 5-6 this year. They lost to the both FBS schools that they played this year. North Texas, it was 52-28. And UTSA, they lost 52-24. So that's University of Texas, San Antonio. Realistically, this should be a big victory for the Rockets. Potentially even maybe a shutout with the defense. But definitely at least 3 scores, maybe more. 4 scores probably is a good area to go with right there. So that should be a big victory for the Rockets, moving them to 1-1 on the season. Now, before I go any further, if you like the content today and can't get enough about your Toledo Rockets, hit the subscribe button below. We cover Rockets football as well as men's and women's basketball. So make sure you subscribe for the latest info on your Toledo Rockets. Okay, so on September 16th, the Rockets will be right back at home against San Jose State, I should say. Remember, at this point, I got Toledo losing at Illinois, but then winning at home against Texas Southern. So now we're looking at game number 3, second straight home game, and San Jose State, team out of the Mountain West Conference. One of the memories I have as a child was, this goes back to 1981, I believe it was 1981. Toledo played against San Jose State in the California Bowl. I believe this was the very first California Bowl, as a matter of fact. And San Jose State was a ranked team. Toledo moved down the field late in the game and kicked a field goal to win it, upsetting a ranked San Jose State team. and it was the first California Bowl ever. So that's a good memory I have about San Jose State. You know, we're now looking 2023. It's San Jose State. Um, they're still a solid team. They've had their ups and downs throughout the years, like all teams pretty much do, but they're in the Mountain West Conference. It's a good, strong, mid-major group of five conference. This year they're 7-4, and they're going to play against a MAC school actually in the Idaho Potato Bowl. They're going to take on Eastern Michigan, and that game is on December 20th, the same day that Toledo plays in their bowl game, Boca Raton Bowl, against Liberty. It's a little bit earlier in the day, so maybe watch the Eastern Michigan and San Jose State game. You're going to see two opponents that Toledo will play next year. Of course, they always play Eastern Michigan and West Division opponent in the MAC, and San Jose State will be one of the non-conference opponents next year. So let's look at some other things here. They do have a win against a MAC school this year. That's Western Michigan. They beat 34-6. Another common opponent with Toledo was San Diego State. Toledo lost to San Diego State 17-14 back in September. Well, San Jose State lost to San Diego State 43-27. So very comparable here to what Toledo could do, right? Similar, obviously a little bit bigger score against Western Michigan, where Toledo laid a complete egg and lost that game, but it seemed like Toledo played San Diego State much tougher than San Diego State, much tougher than San Jose State. Too many states here. Oh my gosh. Let's start with San and end in State. But yeah, so the other game that you can look at is Auburn. They played Auburn at Auburn, and they lost that game 24-16. Now, I know Auburn had a down year this year, but it's another game to look at comparable. They played them well. I think going into 2023, San Jose State's going to be a solid opponent for Toledo, but it's definitely a winnable game. Playing this game at home in the Glass Bowl, I give the edge to Toledo in this one. So now we're going to look at the last non-conference game. I believe there's going to be a conference game in the mix before this game next year, but let's just go to the last non-conference game. The Rockets will play at UMass, and Toledo trounced UMass back in September, 55-10 this year in the Glass Bowl. And obviously playing on the road is always tougher, but Toledo should really win this game easily at UMass. So potentially here, if my predictions come out, Toledo will be 3-1 in their non-conference games. Okay, so that takes us to conference play. First, we're going to look at the 5 MAC West Division opponents, and we're going to start with Ball State. Ball State went 5-7 this season, and they were 3-5 in the conference. They lost at Toledo 28-21. Running back Carson Steele was a load all season long, and he played well against Toledo. He was just so hard to bring down. People were constantly have missed tackles against him just because he's a beast. He's a big guy. He's deceptively fast, and he was very tough. But he has entered the transfer portal, so it does not look like Toledo will have to worry about Carson Steele next year, which is good for all MAC teams that are not Ball State, not having to worry about him. Also in the portal is QB John Paddock. So only one other quarterback on Ball State's roster played this season, that being Kyle Kelly. He played in just one game. He completed his only pass attempt for 23 yards. So you look at Steele and Paddock, that's a huge part of the Ball State offense, and they're going to be gone for next year. That's a lot to replace. Steele was their go-to guy all season long. He just played so well. Toledo did a good job, I thought, at times, especially in the second half against him. But he still broke out some really nice plays. He had a long touchdown run off a broken tackle. And, we have to go to Muncie, Indiana for this one. So definitely not having Steele there to have to worry about him is going to help. There's always this thought that there's a Muncie jinx playing at Ball State, but I'm going to give the Rockets this one and say they're going to come out on top. All right, that's going to take us to Central Michigan. And Toledo won 38-17 this season against Central Michigan. It was UT's homecoming game. The Chippewas were just 4-8 with losses against their rivals in back-to-back weeks to end the season with Western Michigan and Eastern Michigan. Despite the game being in Mount Pleasant next fall, I really think Toledo should win this game. All right, that is going to take us to Northern Illinois. Toledo traveled to DeKalb this year and beat the Huskies 52-32. It was a tough year for Northern Illinois. They went just 3-9 and 2-6 in conference play. This game will be in Toledo, and while Northern Illinois always seems to play Toledo tough, I expect we'll see a Rocket W in 2023. I mean, I know, you look at Northern Illinois last year in 2021, they had a great year. It was a big turnaround with Hammock in there as their head coach. And this year, they seem to go back down to where they were before 2021, and I think that as you look into 2023, they're probably going to be better, but I just don't think that they're going to be able to keep up with Toledo in the Glass Bowl. All right, that takes us to Eastern Michigan, and Toledo did win 27-24 at Eastern Michigan this season. Look, the Eagles are a really solid team. They're 8-4. They went 5-3 in the MAC. They'll be playing against San Jose State, like I said before, in the Idaho Potato Bowl. That game's on December 20th. Remember, same day that Toledo plays Liberty in the Boca Raton Bowl. So let's look into that team just a little more, right? Senior running back Samson Evans leads the team with 1,084 yards rushing and 13 total touchdowns in 2022. Senior QB Taylor Powell played in 8 games and threw for 1,813 yards and 14 touchdowns with 7 interceptions. Sophomore Austin Smith played in 9 games with about half of the pass attempts that Powell had, and he threw for 774 yards and 6 touchdowns with 4 interceptions. There's a well-rounded receiving core that had 5 players with at least 25 receptions on the season, and no one had more than 47. So they really did a good job of spreading it around and not keying on any particular player. They do have a lot of skilled position players on offense that are seniors, though. So there will be some big holes to fill in 2023. This game will be at the Glass Bowl in Toledo, and I really think the Rockets should win this game. So now we take it to Western Michigan. The Broncos just fired head coach Tim Lester after a disappointing 5-7 season, going 4-4 in the MAC. However, Toledo lost at Kalamazoo this year, 20-14. I mean, this should have been a Rocket victory this year. It was so tough watching this game. But star defensive lineman Andre Carter has entered the transfer portal for Western Michigan. That's a big hit to their defense. Offensively, they do return a lot of talent, including running back Sean Tyler. Tyler rushed for over 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns this season as a junior. He had 131 yards and a touchdown in the game against Toledo. Western Michigan will have a new coach, and inconsistent QB play will be a question heading into the 2023 season for them, but they could provide a challenge for Toledo. Luckily, the Rockets get the Broncos at home in the Glass Bowl in 2023, and I think there's going to be a revenge factor after the way Toledo played at Western Michigan this year. Toledo should win this game by 1 to 2 touchdowns. Okay, so that takes us to the 3 crossover games. I'm going to start with Bowling Green here, right? It's the Battle of I-75. Toledo had owned the Falcons with 11 wins in the last 12 games before this year's game in Toledo. BG won that game 42 to 35. And, the Falcons are on the upswing. They're 6-6 so far this season. They had a 5-3 conference record. They're going to play New Mexico State in the Quick Lane Bowl up in Detroit December 26th. They had some nice wins this year and some lopsided losses as well, which really is typical of a young team that is slowly improving. And I think that's what we're seeing with Bowling Green. They beat Marshall in overtime, and Marshall went 8-4, and they beat Notre Dame this season. Of course, Bowling Green won in Toledo as well. They went 5-3 in the MAC, like I said, but all 3 losses, Buffalo, Kent State, and Ohio, were blowout losses. Look, this is a huge rivalry, and the teams just don't like each other. The fans don't either, for the most part, right? It's a short trip from Toledo to Bowling Green, and there will be lots of fans from both schools at this game. Toledo can win this game, but I'm not sure that they will. Bowling Green QB Matt McDonald is a senior this year. There are questions about who will be the QB next year, and potentially some NCAA eligibility questions at quarterback to get through. But this game is in BG, and they should, they sure came to play at the Glass Bowl this year in Toledo. My heart says Toledo for this game. I'm sorry, not really. Yeah, my heart says Toledo for this game. My mind even says Toledo for this game, but my gut says BG will win. Really hate to say that, especially for a second year in a row, but I'm going to have to go with the gut and say that BG is going to win this game. Now, before you shoot me, before you turn the video off, let's just look. There's still 2 more crossover games to talk about, and I don't have a whole lot of information. I thought a couple years ago the MAC had announced conference crossover games for the next few seasons, but I've been unable to find any information on it. So it's possible that the other 2 crossover games are locked in already, but I don't really have that information, so I don't want to speculate on who the Rockets might play. Either way, they're really going to be winnable games. Whoever it is out of the East, it could be a good, solid team. I think there's a possibility maybe Miami. Again, I don't want to speculate, but we haven't played Miami in forever, Miami University. I don't know exactly who the 2 teams are going to be, but they're definitely winnable games. I'm not going to make a prediction because I don't know exactly who they're going to be, but just keep that in mind that they are winnable games. So now, not counting those 2 games, I've got the Rockets at 8-2 overall and 5-1 in conference play. Realistically, this team should be 10-2 or 9-3 at the worst. Now, I know those are high aspirations, but look, they are the defending MAC champions, and there is a lot of talent on this team. So there should be high aspirations, in my opinion. This team should have high aspirations in 2023. There should be a high standard that they're expected to do well. I know I've been critical of the offensive line, the way that they play the last few years, especially the last 2 years. It has to get better. It has to be better in 2023 if Toledo is going to reach these lofty expectations or aspirations that I have on them. Coach Kendall is still a young coach. I know he's been here a while, but he's still a young coach. I believe he's still learning and will continue to improve with his decision making. I'm optimistic that the staff can fix the offensive line, the issues that we've seen on the offensive line. And like I've said before, we're going to need at least 2 solid offensive line pickups out of the transfer portal, guys that can come in next fall and play right away, start right away. I think that's going to be a key. And, if we can get that done and improve the assignments, the footwork, and so forth, I really believe that we can achieve these aspirations next year. So, high aspirations. I'm saying 10-2, 9-3 worst. This is a defending MAC championship team going into 2023, so got to have the high aspirations. And they got the talent. They should be able to do it. So let me know what you think about 2023 and where Toledo might be. Let me know in the comments below. And hopefully, hopefully you guys aren't going to hit me up too badly here in the comments because I predicted Bowling Green to win that game, but I could be wrong. We could still win that game too. So, these are my predictions, and still the 10-2 or 9-3 season is a pretty good year. It's a little better than this year where we're at 8-5 right now. We did win the MAC, but we're 8-5. So I'm expecting better, high aspirations again, like I said. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you in the next one.